Okay guys, I've got a little bit of a different video for you here today, but please don't tune out. I'm in York, you've seen the videos of me out on the streets, and I do know that lots of you just like that for the entertainment value. But I'm here in York for the UK Column Conference. So as it says, they're an antidote to the mainstream media. Now, full disclosure, I'm not getting paid to promote UK Column at all, but what I did receive is a free press pass, which gave me free access to this event in order to report on it. So that's what I'm doing here today. Now, I've said many times that this trans agenda is a top-down globalist agenda. It's not grassroots at all. It's not bottom-up. All these young people have been radicalised online, particularly during the COVID period, but they have been radicalised a little bit before that as well. The explosion came around about 2015 and there was a massive increase. But during that COVID period, when all the teenagers and young people were locked in their bedrooms, they were getting groomed online by social media. Now, I've just listened to a fantastic talk by Dr. Tess Lori from the World Council of Health, and she's put so much more meat on the bones about this globalist agenda, and it's massively coordinated. So I'm going to interview the people and the speakers and the attendees of this conference and try and put some meat on the bones as to where or who's responsible for this. Like it's a coup. We know that there's a culture war on. We know that there's a war on national sovereignty, and I'm trying to find and get to the root cause of who's behind all this. And I'm sure I know that there's people here who have much more knowledge than me on this subject. So enjoy the video, guys. It's, as I say, it's a little bit different, but I think it's my job now, I've got a bit of an audience, is to try and give you some information which you're not going to receive on the mainstream media, particularly on the BBC. If you're still watching the BBC, if you've still got a TV licence and you know that they're lying to you, stop paying your TV licence. You can do it, you can declare that you've not got it, and tune into alternative news networks like my channel that you're watching on now, like UK Column, and there's many others out there too. That's my advice. Enjoy the video, and here are the interviews coming up. So I'm here with Sandi Adams. Now, if you don't know Sandi, I would describe her as an expert in globalisation, and I always talk about the transgender or the gender ideology being a top-down kind of ideology which is being pushed on the Western world. It's not bottom up, it's not grassroots at all. I sometimes find it difficult to join the dots and connect them, and that's why I've got Sandi here. So Sandi, pretty much over to you. If you start by just giving us a background as to who you are and what you've researched, and then just let's talk about it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for speaking to me. Yeah, I mean, I started my journey in the early 2000s, really, on really understanding what the United Nations were up to with Agenda 21, which then turned into 2030, and really all the organisations, the globalist organisations attached to the UN that are pushing all this out. You know, whether it be climate change, whether it be everything, LGBTQ, just everything, that the money, programmable money, everything is really coming from a top-down agenda, and the transgender agenda is really key to them succeeding in their goals, and it's all part of the same project. Yeah. So when you look at gender identity and LGBTQ, it's not only a social engineering issue; it is also a kind of deep, dark, if you like, agenda towards transhumanism. Yeah. And we've got to really look at that. And I'll pick this apart now if you
Yeah, absolutely. I've spoken about it being transhumanism. Yeah, there's a billionaire called Martin Rothblatt who wrote a book, From Transgender to Transhuman. I don't know if you've come across it.
Yeah, I've heard of this book. Yeah, I haven't read it. Yeah. But I've heard of this book, and it's something that we really do have to look at, because the thing is that when they bring in this ideology, particularly into schools, universities, they're promoting a non-fixed, not a fixed identity.
Right.
So you've got an identity that's fluid, and what you're laying down in that groundwork is for a kind of digital identity that is programmable. It's the programmable self,
Right.
and that leads you into the fact that also there is a lawful thing with this as well, is the minute you have an identity that is neither male or female, they lose their rights as you know, because you become androgynous.
Right.
So therefore, there's an issue there where you become a non-person.
Right.
In the legal sense.
Yeah.
Not the lawful sense, the legal sense. So there's an issue there that you actually become something that isn't human.
Right. Never thought of it that
Yeah.
way, but because a legal fiction is created when you're
Exactly.
born,
Yeah.
and the state issue, you become something that the state can make money from.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like an asset to the state,
Yeah.
down to your legal fiction,
Yeah.
your birth certificate.
Yeah. And now, when a child is born, they instead of saying they're male or female, they say assigned at
Yeah.
birth.
Yeah.
So if you change that, then you're changing your status. You're
Right,
changing your
okay.
status as a lawful man
Yep.
or woman under God's law. So therefore, that's another issue, is
Right.
that you become something else. And you've also got the fact that if you detach from the body, from the biology, it's easier to merge into transhumanism, much easier. And you can merge with AI systems, you know, like, for instance, going into the metaverse.
Right.
And all that kind of stuff.
Martin Rothblatt talks about
Yeah.
downloading your consciousness onto
Yeah.
a server,
Your digital
and you
twin.
can live eternally as an
Yes,
avatar in this
that's right.
in this metaverse.
And this is what the future is like. Yuval Harari, he promotes this. I mean, if you look at his video that he did on hackable humans, and I advise anyone, please, to look at hackable humans with Noah, Yuval Harari,
Yeah.
and Klaus Schwab. And they talk about a non-biological future for this planet. That is their aim. They are clearly insane, in my view. And this is what they think the future should be, where they play themselves as gods, and they have dominion over this earth, using the AI and the whole non-biological world as their playground. And that is really concerning. So you've got these futurists like Peter Thiel or all of these people coming together and creating what they think is the future for our world and for us. And that doesn't include humans.
Yeah, well, there's going to be people watching now thinking, who is this nut job? These two tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorists are talking all this nonsense. Now, I was talking about digital IDs and technology controlling us literally 5 years ago, round about the COVID period, and people were calling me a nut job then. Now, all of a sudden, digital IDs are actually in the news and they come in. So what would you say to those people that would say we're just conspirators?
No, digital ID is the framework for this non-human future that they're planning. So don't go along with digital ID. Don't comply. It is really part of this bigger plan, and it's a huge plan to really get rid of the human being and to dispose of anything that's biological, anything that's natural. So the other problem is that it also, the whole LGBTQ gender ideology, it subtly replaces the control of the parents with the state. And we're seeing this in schools, where somehow the schools dictate exactly what the children are taught, and it causes division within the family, which is great for them because it breaks down the family and the cultural and the traditional moral issues that you would normally take on as a family. It breaks those down, so you have a more compliant race of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've seen this firsthand, speaking to parents whose children are estranged. Particularly, it seems to have come from the COVID time when kids were locked in their bedrooms alone with a computer, being influenced. I think we were caught sleeping. We were worried about face mask lockdowns and injections where the kids were getting indoctrinated, and we that passed us by.
Yeah, they took our children's minds during COVID, without a doubt. And there's, I mean, the whole gender ideology has exploded since COVID. So that is proof that this happened. And you know, these children are vulnerable, and they've been brainwashed into all of this. And it's not something that has happened organically. It's been forced on them. And the other thing is, it's about population control. If you've got a whole swathe of population that isn't going to be fertile, and if they're gender fluid, they're not going to reproduce. And if they are, it's going to be a very odd reproduction system where you've got men and men and women and women and men and women who are not identifying as men and women. And there is this whole thing where the state can take control of those children too. Yeah,
well, I mean, I've been banging on about there being a depopulation agenda, and as soon as I mention that word, the tinfoil hat goes on in people's minds, and they think you're a nut job. But all the evidence is out there. You know, who is it? Henry Kissinger even wrote a national security memorandum. Was it 2000 or 3000 in the 70s about depopulation? So I've been banging on about this for a long time. So the thing is, how does this then tie into the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations and climate change? Because if climate change is due to humans producing carbon, then what is the solution to that problem? That's to reduce the amount of humans. So you can't believe in climate change and not believe that there's a depopulation agenda. So tell us a little bit about the Sustainable Development Goals. I know you've done a lot of work on this.
The Sustainable Development Goals were really the pinnacle of their work that they've been doing since the 1970s. And as you say, you've got all these Club of Rome documents, like the Limits to Growth, for instance. I've read that book. That was one of the main...
I believed it at the time.
I know, and at the same time, around the 1970s, you had a book published by Paul Ehrlich called The Population Bomb, and it was all really fed into the minds of the people at that time by the Club of Rome, because the Club of Rome needed a narrative, and there were three major Club of Rome reports that made the Agenda 21, which before it was Agenda 2030, it was Agenda 21, and that's where I did all my research in the early 2000s, because it happened really at the Earth Summit in 1992, where they got 178 countries to sign up to Agenda 21, and they used Limits to Growth, Our Common Future, and another Club of Rome report called what was it called? It was the one that was all about it was how they used climate change to make us the enemy, and now I'm trying to remember what that one's called. The first global revolution. Do look at all these Limits to Growth, Our Common Future, the first global revolution, and all of these addressed different things that they needed to achieve, which was an understanding that we were overpopulated, that we have to have that was the Limits to Growth. Our Common Future was about equitable, making everybody equal. It was a very if you like, it was a socialist system where everybody earns the same, and countries have to be equitable, which is when all our industry went over to India and China. And then the third one was the first global revolution, where they identified us as the enemy of creating climate change, and that they actually plucked it out of the air. They said climate change would fit the bill to actually achieve this aim, to make us the scapegoat. And so with all that said, Agenda 21 was an attack on the human being. Without a doubt, we were the scum on the earth, and various things happened after that. And then in 2030, it became, in 2015, it became Agenda 2030, where they made these 17 goals to achieve what they needed to achieve. Now, those goals didn't happen quick enough, so they kept accelerating it. And the 2015, where they launched the 17 goals at the Vatican with Obama, was an acceleration, because it hadn't moved quick enough since 1992. So then they accelerated it, and of course by 2018, 2019, it hadn't accelerated enough. So they brought it forward with COVID-19. They said they needed digital inclusion to get those 17 goals done. done. And they got their digital inclusion because they locked us down and they got everybody on their devices.
Yeah, I think something that people might want to look up as well, I'm sure you know about this, and I read about this at the time, in 2019, just before COVID struck us, the United Nations and the World Economic Forum signed a memorandum of understanding to push forward the Sustainable Development Goals. People look it up.
It was in June 2019 in Switzerland with Antonio Guterres, Klaus Schwab. The World Economic Forum met with the United Nations. It was called the Strategic Framework Partnership meeting, and they put a memorandum of understanding of what they needed to do to accelerate the 17 goals. One of them was called digital cooperation. There were 6 of them. There was all sorts of things about gender, about women, but one of them was digital cooperation. And then 4 months later, in New York, they met again at the Johns Hopkins Institute in New York, but they added into the mix Bill and Melinda Gates, and they said, it was a tabletop exercise. What if there was a novel coronavirus? It escaped from a wet market in Brazil. This exercise, and what would we do? How would we deal with it? And of course, Bill and Melinda were there saying it's fine. We've got a vaccine, which they patented 8 years before at the Purbright Institute in Wiltshire. Yeah. So there you have it. It was engineered, and when
do you want to tell them what the name was of this event?
Event 201.
Look up Event 201, guys. This is what really piqued me. Just prior to COVID, they did a tabletop exercise about the spread of a coronavirus around the world. Sorry to butt in, carry on.
No, it's brilliant, because I do forget things because it's all in my head. But thank you. Yeah, exactly. That's what happened. And since then, there's been a concerted effort to bring in this. Then of course you've got all these futurists coming up. With Klaus Schwab saying that everything needs to be robotic, and you've got Elon Musk with Neuralink, where you actually have things put into your brain that turn you half cyborg. And none of this is made up. It's all there. The facts are there. Research it. We're not nut jobs.
You tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, Sandi.
This is the truth. And do you know we get vilified for telling the truth, and it's. We all need to know this. We need to know this. No,
brilliant. Is there anything more then that we can add to this? Anything else that you want to say? I mean, we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're hearing this for the first time, everything that we've said, please go and research it, because it's all there. We're not as mad as we might look.
And is there anything? I don't know. I think we've covered so much, particularly on the gender identity. Is there anything else you'd like to ask me? Because I'm just thinking. I think we've covered the fact that it's a top-down agenda to destroy the human condition. That's it.
So you've got a website, and I've looked at your website because I first heard you speaking on James Delingpole's Delingpod, and it was like somebody, I thought, who is this woman? She's speaking with crystal clear clarity. She doesn't sound like a nut job, and everything that I was thinking in my mind, you was able to articulate it. And then I went to your website and I had a look and I thought, wow, all the information's here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, my website I made a long time ago, and I'm still updating it because it got hacked. That's another story. It got hacked.
Have they got a Wikipedia page on you as well?
I don't know.
Calling you a nut job?
Oh, they probably do. I have no idea. I do keep under the radar quite a bit.
Right.
I've just set up a Substack where I will be putting an article about gender identity on it.
Brilliant.
Not this week, probably next week.
Okay.
But yes, I'm on X. I'm at Sandi Adams 2030.
Is it Sandi with an I?
It's Sandi with an I. Yeah.
S-A-N-D.
SandiAdams, and also my website is sandiadams.net.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Guys, I think we've covered everything there. Check Sandi out because she's an absolute authority on this stuff. She's like a go-to kind of encyclopedia. It's amazing.
Sandipedia.
Yeah, Sandipedia. Absolutely. What can people do then to fight back? Just to finish up, because people watching this, we've got this digital ID looming. If I file a tax return, the government's going to want me to sign up to this. I'm in this position as well. I want to resist it at all costs. Oh, and a quick one as well. going digital, they're looking at getting rid of cash. And I said right at the beginning of COVID, you know, this is part of an agenda to get rid of cash. And people said, again, conspiracy theorist, nut job. Once every single transaction that you do is digital, and they bring in a digital currency, which is different from normal digital money that we've got now because it's programmable, how will this affect people, and how can we resist it?
What you see, what they're aiming to do, and let's face it, a lot of it is in place now. I mean, when you walk into a supermarket, if you still use them, try not to. If you still use supermarkets, when you walk in, your facial recognition is taken the minute you walk in, your facial recognition is taken, and then that links you up. When you go to the till, your facial recognition links you up with your credit card at the moment, and you do all your payments through the credit card or cash. But certainly through your credit card, your facial recognition is linked. Now, in the future, the biometrics in the supermarkets are going to ramp up. And you may have noticed that glass doors are now replacing open fridges. And there's a reason for those glass doors, because there will be a biometric soon that will lock those glass doors. Because when they go fully digital, when everything goes fully digital with your digital ID, you'll be given a set amount of carbon credits in order to do your shopping. And if your biometrics, say you've done a film like this, those doors will not open, and you won't be, and your bank account could be compromised. If you're not doing what you're not following their narrative, you'll be sanctioned, because it's a social credit system at the end of the day, and all of it will link up. Unfortunately, the digital ID links up not only your shopping habits at the supermarket, your bank, your money supply, it links up with your health records and with your social, they can look and see who you mix with, who you talk to. They'll be looking at your social media. Everything is able to be looked into by AI. And AI can then assess whether you are a good global citizen or not. And if you're not, you'll be locked out of things that you normally have access to.
So there'll be like a tiered system so that's the idea of a social credit system, which is a little bit different than being given, or it might be similar and tied in to being given a carbon score. So if we're the cause of climate change, and producing carbon, which is what humans do, is causing this catastrophe, so they want to limit your carbon out. They know how much carbon you're producing by your spending habits. You've seen them appear on menus as well. This meal is worth so amount of carbon. So for example, if you've had steak one day, you went out for a meal for your wedding anniversary or something, and you've had a big steak, and then 2 days later you want to go and have a McDonald's, and they say, no Big Mac for you, mate, because you had a steak the other night.
There's one document that you really must look at, and it's called the Absolute Zero document. It's called the UK Fires Absolute Zero document. On page 3 or 4, you'll see a roadmap to 2030 and how they're going to phase out meat and dairy by 2049 onwards. There will be no meat and dairy in the UK. This has been read in the House of Lords. It's been put into action, and it was a white paper cobbled together, and it was commissioned by the UK government by various top universities. And there's no planes in or out of the UK by 2049. No ships in or out of the UK by 2049. So look at it, it's a huge roadmap, and it also supports the circular economy, where things are not being produced, that actual production of anything in the UK or being imported into the UK it stops. And so everything is recycled. So all your clothes, you're allowed 3 items of clothing a year. I mean, it's mad, and this is what they want. I don't believe this will happen if the whole population of the UK and the world woke up to this, and we need mass non-compliance. That's the only thing that will save us. The only thing that will save us is mass non-compliance of all of this.
Right. Yeah. And we're going to get in trouble for saying that. Yeah. Okay, from us to, I think that's it, Sandy.
Yeah, I think
we've pretty much done everything. From us to nut jobs in York, right? Okay.
Nut jobs. Tinfoil matters.
I might start selling a line of tinfoil hats. I actually made one during the COVID period. I had a hat and I put tinfoil over it and I used to go wearing it because people called me that, so I thought I might as well become what what people say I am.
I've researched this for 20 years and I never thought it would get as bad as this, and it has. I thought we'd be able to stop it.
Yeah.
We haven't. We need to.
Right, so it's a call to action, guys. Sandi, thank you so much for your time.
Bless
It really
you.
do
Thank you for your work.
appreciate it. Guys, thanks very much. It's been a little bit of a different video than what you normally get. Next ones will be me standing on the streets, probably getting food products thrown over me again, as usual, what you guys like. Thanks, Sandi.
Thank you.
Okay guys, I'm here at the UK Column Conference in York. I'm with Dr. Tess Lawrie. Dr. Tess Lawrie is an ambassador for the World Council of Health. Now, I've always said to you guys that this trans agenda, this gender ideology is a top-down agenda, and I've just listened to a fantastic speech from Dr. Tess Lori, and she has talked a little bit more about this global agenda to basically control and colonise us, take away national sovereignty and personal sovereignty. So Tess, over to you.
Yeah, so thanks very much, Stephen. It's really a pleasure to be able to speak with you about something that's very close to my heart, which is sovereignty. The trap I think that everybody's been caught in is identity. So we've got identity, and identity is divisive. Identity is sort of cutting us up into lots of different things. You might identify as, you know, by your country, your national flag, your language, your specific, your football club, you know, and so on. So so things have been. We've been as humans sort of forced, you know, through all the paperwork to put down our identity, marital status, whatever, you know. So we're forced to identify with things, but in actual fact we're all the same. We're all at the very basis that our common identity, you could say, is as a human being. So we're all human beings. Yeah. So we need to start from that point. And how this whole identity, and I think some term it identity politics or whatever, came about is it's through colonization. Not the colonization of the past where corporations or countries run by corporations claimed, you know, invaded a country and colonized it and converted everybody to something. What we've had is colonization by stealth, by the corporations, and the individual human being is being colonized right now. So the perspective as a human being, as a complete human being, and we're all different and we all have different likes and dislikes and whatever, but we're all completely different and unique. What defines us all in the same way and what we all have access to is sovereignty and freedom. Now, sovereignty is very different from identity. And sovereignty, I really refer to in three parts. There's mind sovereignty, there's body sovereignty, and there's soul sovereignty. And our mind sovereignty is colonized by our gadgets. So now the corporations, the corporate colonists, they're gamers in the gadgets. If they can get us on the gadgets and they can persuade us, and they call us hackable animals. Right. So they feel they can hack our minds and our thoughts. And they can. This is true. We're not animals, but we are hackable. And so you know, through what they present, the algorithms, what they show you, they can guide you into decision making. So you decide for a certain group, you decide for a certain product. So they can guide people to identify as something as they're not. This is how they've hacked young people that are confused with gender ideology. Yes. Right. Yes, and we all have a need to belong. But what we as World Council of Health are really trying to promote is we all belong to a common human tribe. We are a tribe. We're all the same, you know, and you know. So let's get back to that. But just on the subject then of how we stop being used and manipulated. The one is, as I say, with mind sovereignty or cognitive sovereignty. So you're in control of your thoughts. It's really to spend as much time in nature as possible, as little time as possible on that corporate media, on that feed. In front of screens. It's called a feed for a reason. You know, your TikTok feed, your Twitter feed. It's called a feed because it's feeding you. The corporations are feeding you what they want you to hear. So they have the power to influence you in very major ways. The other is body sovereignty. So body sovereignty is to manage that is to detox, because they are putting junk into our bodies in the foods, glyphosate, fluoride in the water, in many different ways. These fast food products, the seed oils, the pollution in the air, and also, of course, many people are not yet aware but are realizing that those COVID shots were not safe and were not effective. So they actually have the potential to really contaminate and degenerate our health. So detox is the second key. So detox is the key to body sovereignty.
Is there another element to that as well? So we've got this electromagnetic soup, for want of a better word, that we're living in. And I've spoke about 5G radiation in the past, this non-ionizing radiation that has the potential to harm us, and there's studies out there to show that it may be responsible, these masks of causing cancers and stuff like that. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, the two things go hand in hand. So 5G, we call it e-smog. Okay.
E-smog.
E-smog.
Right, okay.
So we have a little badge, which I don't have on today, which says no e-smogging, which is quite good for the UK audience, because of course snogging is a thing. But we say no e-smogging to really raise awareness of the dangers, because unfortunately we've become so literal and visual that we think because we can't see something it doesn't exist. In actual fact, our world is described by energy, frequency and vibration. And what 5G mobile phones and all of that do is they provide a huge amount of electromagnetic radiation, and that affects our health. It causes cancer and all sorts of autoimmune diseases, and even things that we might ascribe to cold and flu and headache symptoms. So
is there a way to do that safely? Because I would be a hypocrite to say let's get rid of all the 5G and all the radiation, because I use it extensively. I mean, I'm a fan of technology, but is there a way? It's like you can say, right, driving cars, road traffic accidents, that kills people, but I don't want to get rid of cars, and I don't want to get rid of the technology, so I'd be hypocritical to say no, let's ban it all. So is there a way it can be done safely?
There's definitely a way to do it, but first one has to recognize that it is addictive. So not the frequency is not addictive, but what they bring in terms of the phones is highly addictive. And so perhaps that's why we've overlooked the health aspects, because we've become so addicted to the. So it's an approach is really like you would do with any addict, like a smoking addict or whatever. You would do a course of some sort, so the first thing to do is there are ways of measuring. So you can measure your EMF exposure, because there are devices you can get that measure the radiation. They measure it in microwatts per meter squared. So wattage is what you'd get on a light bulb or whatever. And these monitors measure how much of that energy is in your meter squared.
Okay.
So it's like
I've got one of the meters actually.
So it should be less than 10 microwatts per meter squared in here. But I'm sure where we're standing here, it's probably 100 or 150 or whatever. And when you're on your mobile phone or you get a message, it goes up. And then it could be in the thousands or tens of or 100,000. And when I'm on a train to London, my meter reads over 2.5 million, and that's the maximum it can read. So those sort of joint commutes, we're all polluting one another. And if it was cigarette smoke, we would be saying, hey, quit that, you're polluting me. But we don't see it. So we some people do feel it. There's about 5 to 10% of the population that actually feel extremely ill. And
I've heard of this. Is there a name for that?
It's called electromagnetic hypersensitivity. Or sensitivity, but they are the canaries in the coal mine, because if you remember, they used to put canaries in the coal mine to determine whether it was safe for human beings, and so they're the first to become ill. And because we're the radio frequency radiation technology is just being rolled out without being regulated in any way, we're very soon reaching a threshold where it'll be 50% of people who are affected, and more, and people will have to move out of the cities. So hygiene, digital hygiene is very important.
That's a nice way of thinking about it, or an effective way of thinking about it,
So for example, in my house, I have a very safe environment, and when I use my meter there, it registers 0. I have 0 EMF in my house, because I Ethernet cable everything. So for very
Wi-Fi routers,
so cheap and easy. You just buy the Ethernet cables. They cost 10 quid or something, and you take it from your router to your laptop. and turn off the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And you can get it for the mobile phone as well. But mobile phone does require a different approach. I put most of my, I don't know if I'm talking too long.
No, not at all. I was just looking to see if you were coming out of the camera, but you're not. You're in.
Yeah. So mobile phone, you need a different approach because it's calling you all the time. It's constantly calling you in your pocket. It's constantly saying ping, 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 and it's a sort of dopamine hit each time. Your friend says something good to you, you feel good, and she says something terrible, and you feel terrible. And it's just a sort of emotional roller coaster that people are on one way or the other. So what I recommend with mobile phones is that you do you actually start to turn it off because. So, for example, the way that I use my mobile phone is I've got my apps on my laptop.
Yeah.
So it means when I'm at work, I can actually communicate with everybody on Telegram and Signal and WhatsApp and all of that because those apps are on my laptop and it's Ethernet cable.
Right.
I've told everybody now, I don't use a mobile phone, so if you want me to call you, if you want to have a telephone conversation, then please tell me what time and we can have a call.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can reach me on the other apps, which are on my laptop.
Yeah.
So if you need to get me in an emergency, of course you can reach me because it would come through on my preferred app, which my friends know. But equally, I'm not sort of jumping to everyone's beck and call all day long with my mobile phone going off. I do manage to turn my phone off for long periods now. I can turn it off for 2 days.
I turn mine off at night. I should maybe do it more often.
And the other thing that you can do, just a simple thing, obviously never sleep with the phone next to your bed or in your bedroom at all. Of course, turn it off at night. You're not using it. Why would you have it on? Are you waiting for someone to ring you in emergency while you're sleeping? Yeah. Mostly, you can, things can happen in the night without you knowing. You can wake up in the morning and deal with it then. We don't have to be at 24 hours on beck and call. It's very bad for our health, it's so stressful. So as a first step, I would say, look, if you're going to struggle with that, don't use a mobile phone when you're eating or drinking tea or anything like that. Make sure that those are moments that so if you're going to start somewhere simple, just say, okay, if I'm going to eat, I'm going to focus on this food, I'm going to be grateful for it, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to be sitting scrolling and stuffing my face at the same time. So that's just one, start with that.
I must admit, I've been guilty of that.
Start with that, one simple thing. And don't use it if you're just passing the time, because you see people just scrolling and like, what can I find to entertain myself? Use that time.
It's very addictive, isn't it?
Yeah, use that time just to actually give yourself the mental space to just be bored.
Yeah, of course. Can I just change track a little bit? So if there is this kind of like war on our sovereignty, be it personal sovereignty or national sovereignty, where's it coming from and who's behind it?
Well, what I spoke today at this conference at the UK column is that we have over decades had a system established of global public-private partnerships. So we are no longer in control of our own destinies, and our governments are not in control of the policies that they foist upon us. So they're not in control of the regulation of digital tech. They're not in control of the regulation of medicines. They're not in control of the regulation of farming and food and all of that. They might seem like it, but those policies, they're just enforcing those policies.
So we vote for our government thinking that they're going to make decisions for us, but you're telling me that they're not in charge.
They're not in charge. The groups that are called, they're self-appointed think tanks that are thinking on behalf of us are groups like the World Economic Forum, it's a collective group of corporations and billionaires, and the Rockefeller Foundation. And they've been putting their heads together to think, how can they exploit us to the maximum and extract as much money and control money from us and control over us as they can. And in actual fact, they are not really completely in charge either. The Bank of International Settlements and the central banks, they're in charge. So whoever's running those are actually in charge. The ones that have the purse strings, they're the ones who are in charge. And and one can go into the families that control those banks. But the point is that our governments are not in control. So don't think that because you haven't received a warning to say mobile phones are dangerous, and you haven't received you haven't been appraised of the the huge numbers of vaccine-injured people and the data that's come out on the pharmacovigilance databases in relation to COVID vaccines and also the childhood vaccine schedules, just because you haven't been appraised of those things does not mean it's because your government has looked at it all and said, oh, you know, these things are safe. It's because they are not in control.
Okay, so so just as a final thing, what would you say to people now that wanting to take more control, take their sovereignty back? What would your advice be to the people watching?
Okay, I've got 3 tips. The one is to figure out how to ditch the gadgets, get out of the digital dungeon. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can keep following World Council for Health to find ways to do that. And the other is to detox. So really think of it as mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
And if you think of one area of sovereignty as the mind, as a big hula hoop, and you think of another one as the body and another one as the soul, and where they all connect, that little bit in the middle, is the sovereignty. That's the growing sovereignty area where you've taken control of your health, you're taking control of your cognitive, your decision making and thought processes, and you're taking control of your traumas. We didn't talk about soul, but a lot of us have, you know, we walk around with, oh well, if my teacher hadn't done that, or if my brother hadn't done that, or if my mother or parent hadn't done that, or if I hadn't been born with a whatever, or you know, and we've got this victim mindset. And so we need to heal those traumas, we need to get over those things, and that is another segment of sovereignty which we need to build on. So we bring those 3 hula hoops together gradually, and we become whole, and we become fearless, and we become our own unique human being. That's healed and able to make our own decisions, knows right from wrong, acts on our conscience, and masters, you know, develop self-mastery. I call it becoming great.
Yeah.
You become great.
Fantastic.
In that process.
So finally, where can people find you and your organisation online?
Please please go onto the World Council for Health website. It's worldcouncilforhealth.org. There's a huge mine of information there. If you go onto the resources page, you'll find all sorts of health resources. And there's a shop as well that you can download various things, various health guides. But do also follow me on my Substack, which is Better Way with Dr. Tess Lawrie. It's drtesslawrie.substack. And there I share more of my personal perspective on how we become great.
Fantastic. Tess, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
You, Steve. Thank you.
Subscribe to Tess, guys.
Thank you. Oh, I didn't show you my hand heart. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. You have a book as well.
Yes, I have a book
Tell us about your book.
Game of Trust, The Lawrie Files. It's about 2021, just going into 2022, describing what happened and all the things we did to counter the, you could say, the globalist agenda and establish the World Council for Health. But one of the things I want to share with you is the hand heart, because the hand heart is our symbol for sovereignty, and it's basically taking control, taking responsibility, and saying a very firm no for things you don't like, and you can say a very firm yes, you know, thanks and goodbye and hello. But it's really a personal reminder that we are responsible for ourselves, and we cannot outsource our well-being to anyone, and we are responsible for taking control.
Tess, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys, I'm here at the UK Column Conference in York. I'm here with Brian Gerrish, who's the founder of UK Column. Brian, tell us why UK Column is an antidote to the mainstream media.
Because to the best of our ability, we're dealing in terms of what is factually correct and what's truth, and we are taking the trouble to investigate what's happening around us and to report on it on that basis. And it's very simple, isn't it? At the moment, we've got highly controlled media, of which the BBC is always quite rightly picked out as the bad boy, not telling the truth, putting bias on stories, not informing people of what's happening in wider world politics or what's happening in health, what the result of the vaccinations were. And we are doing our very best to dig in all these subjects to actually tell people what's really happening. And we've paid the price for doing that because a while ago our main YouTube channel was taken down, and that was taken down on the basis that we did an interview with a lady called Nicola. This was at the early stages of COVID-19 and lockdown, and it was the story of how her husband was vaccinated, and a few days later he was paralysed from the neck down, and went on a ward where there were several other men also heavily paralysed, and the consultant on the ward at that stage recognised that it was paralysis as a result of the vaccination. So she gave the testimony as to what had happened to her husband. That went up on the UK column account on YouTube, and within a matter of days we had the whole channel taken down.
Wow, and how many subscribers did you have on the channel
That was
at that
very
point?
close to 100,000 subscribers.
Wow. Okay.
And I'll say the good news is that in the last few days, last week.
We're in a corridor here, and there's people coming in and out, but don't
the
worry.
ladies that are taking stuff through. In the last few days, that channel's been reinstated.
That's
and in
good
fact,
news.
other people that had been censored, that YouTube had censored, had also had their channels put back up.
The original channel?
Yeah, with the original material.
Wow. Still there?
I have to be careful what I say, but possibly that interview is still there,
Right.
albeit embedded in another report as opposed to the standalone report. But for us, this was key in demonstrating that we were doing good work, because what we put out was factually correct. And interestingly, the Daily Mail reported the same story about 2 months later. And of course, the lady didn't change her story because she told the truth in the beginning about what happened to her husband. So the Daily Mail published it, and that stood. Right. But when the UK column published it, we get it taken down as medical misinformation.
So it's weird how the Overton window seems to shift as to what's allowed and what's disallowed, because we're talking about this now and this is going to go out on YouTube, and you've got your YouTube channel back. So to me, there is some kind of global control about what information that we're allowed to hear and speak about or not. Who do you think's behind all that, and where's it all coming from?
Well, the simple explanation of what's going on is we have a group of very powerful individuals who are openly declaring they're creating a world government system, whether they call it the rules-based international order or global governance. And for them to do that, they have to quash the inherent power of the nation state. And so what we're witnessing at the moment is the breakup of our country here in UK, but the same process is being used in other European countries. And they've got to do that in order to bring in a one world global system.
Yeah, and I think you can see the fight back from people, even if they may not understand where this power is coming from, because we're seeing national flags going up on lamp posts, any posts, or on bridges up and down the country. Yeah. So, I'm not sure whether people understand where, this fight is coming from, but you can see that the people know that there's something wrong.
This is key.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of years, as we did what we did, you're pushing out information. Some people react, a lot don't, because they're getting on with their lives. Now you can absolutely see that more and more people sense something's wrong, and they're agitated, they're a bit nervous. And we are seeing that it's much, much easier, in the present year, 2025, to talk to people about what is wrong. So they just have a hint of breakdown, things don't work, there's funny decisions or laws coming into being. Right. And
just in the middle of an interview, mate. All right, thank you.
And now you can talk to them and say, well, have you thought about that? Have you thought about this? Now, in the conference room, Ben Rubin has just done a fantastic presentation all about the NHS. And the key part he's talking about is everything that's been happening behind the scenes and the main part of that has been the rise of private money and corporate power coming in to take over the role of the NHS, but in a way where it's totally unaccountable. So NHS patient data is being used to support corporate profits of the big pharmaceutical companies and a lot of the big consulting companies. So this is factual information which is hidden in plain sight, and which the mainstream media, whether it's the BBC or the Guardian or the Telegraph or the Times, they are simply not reporting it. Why? Because they are part of the cover-up as what's going on. There's no question of it.
Yeah, so you are an antidote to that mainstream media.
By telling the truth and being factual, and we do it to the best of our ability. If we make mistakes, we admit it. You know, if we report something that's not quite right, we admit it. But if you tell the truth about what's happening in the world and you back it up with proper factual information, you're automatically acting as the antidote, because the mainstream media is inherently talking propaganda. Yeah,
so there's your website, but you're more than just a website of information. You do, is it 3 shows? You do yourself three news shows a week. So tell people how they can watch your news shows.
Just go to the UK Column website, ukcolumn.org, and look for the live button. You'll see on the front page of the website the last news that we did in a big video window. And if you click the live button on a Monday, Wednesday or Friday, just before 1 o'clock, you'll be able to watch the live news stream. For people who support us as members, so they're making a monthly donation to the column. Some of them are annual donation, but if you join us as a member, we also do an extra after the news, which is usually about 30 minutes. Sometimes it's a little bit more. That's much more relaxed than the main news, much more chatty. We bring in guests, and so we try to change the style, because a lot of people find factual information about what's happening. They're finding that a bit hard to digest, because it's all the news around us is inherently dark and it's negative. When we do the extra, we try and lift the mood and make it more fun.
Okay, guys, so if you want to know where this is all coming from, then please tune into the UK Column. Brian, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you want to add before we finish?
Well, I'm just going to say a big thank you for you doing what you do, because you followed the UK Column at a couple of events we've done recently, the Hope Festival and the previous one before
which was
that,
Sounds Beautiful.
We got there, and you took all the wonderful footage, and that's been great, because that's showing another side of the UK Column team. We're not just in a studio talking to the audience. We've got out camping and mixing it with people that were really having a great time just being together. So thank you.
And we share a common employer, actually, because I was in the Royal Navy and you was as well.
This is true.
Yeah. So just tell us quickly about your Royal Navy career.
Well, I joined the Navy in 1972 and I left in 1993, so it was 21 years.
Right.
And I always say I enjoyed most of it. I enjoyed being at sea. There's something fantastic about being on board ships. But towards the end of my career, I started to see changes in the Navy, things which I just sensed that they weren't right. I didn't feel comfortable with them, and I got to the point where I thought it was time for me to leave. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I left the Navy and worked normally for a while in industry, and then eventually life led me to help set up the UK Column. And you, of course, had a particularly unique thing, because you went from the Navy into the Royal Marines. And
you're almost correct there. I was in Royal Navy for like six and a half years, and then I went to the Royal Marines and did the All Arms Commando course. Earned my Green Beret, and then went on into 148 Commando Battery, which is a unique forward observation battery, which has sailors, radio operators who were sailors, which is what I was, and then soldiers from 29 Commando Regiment working together as these small observation teams. So it was a unique career that I had there.
It's brilliant. But a lot of things with the military, because the military in lots of ways has a bad reputation, but the military, when you're inside it, there are some things which you can never experience anywhere else. The teamwork, just the way people treat each other, and I had a lot of very good memories. But when the time came to leave, I knew it was time to move on. And here I am in another battle.
Yeah.
So I'm not in uniform, but I think I'm still fighting a battle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I left the military because I was sick of being told what to do, and I wanted my own life back.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
I'll just say the thing which ultimately made me make the decision to leave is that I was captain of one of the small fishery protection vessels, and one dark stormy night, MAF, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, told us that we had to confiscate the net of a Scottish fishing boat at the entrance to the Firth of Forth, and that Scottish captain, quite rightly, was very unhappy, and he swore at me. I won't repeat what he said, but effectively he said, "You're destroying my livelihood."
Yeah.
And I actually, reflecting on that, knew that what I was doing was wrong. So I was enforcing European fisheries policy on British fishermen. I knew it was wrong, and that was one of the key decisions that led to me leaving. So I sometimes wonder if that Scottish fishing boat captain, skipper, ever sees me talking. If you pick it up and you were that man, get in contact with me, because I'd like to meet you again and I'd like to shake your hand.
If
you'll accept it.
Okay. On that note, let's leave it there, Brian.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Cheers.
That's great.
Okay guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed all the speakers from the UK Column Conference. It's the day after now, it's Sunday, and Sue and I are just going to take a leisurely stroll around York. So it's been quite an eventful weekend. On the Friday, you'll have seen the videos by now, I had some great interactions with people, and they are just the gift that keeps on giving all the time. Hopefully by now that thing from the LGBTQ cafe that was very, very pleased that Charlie Kirk is no longer with us. Let's just hope she's internet famous by now. All right.
And say hi to the couple that we bumped into first of all. For the life of me, can't remember your names, but you'll know who you are when you were in York on Friday. And thanks for saying hello to us.
Yeah. Oh yes. So what I was trying to do with this video, and we know it's a bit different than the others, I wanted to put a little bit of meat on the bones with regards to how this gender ideology isn't grassroots, it's a top-down ideology, and there are people pulling the strings, and it's ripping families apart, and it's basically they're trying to deconstruct Western society, and they want to, build their new digital technocracy out of that deconstruction. It's all about control. So, we had Tess Lori was the first person he interviewed, an absolute expert, World Council for Health, check them out. And of course we had Brian Gerrish. Brian was the founder of UK Column. Without him, we wouldn't have been here this weekend. And then finally had Sandi Adams, and what a fountain of knowledge Sandi is, just look at what she knows, and if you think she's a conspirator, and a tinfoil hat wearer, well, you just have a look at some of the stuff she talks about. It's all there, it's all open. You just got to have that realization that there are global forces dictating our lives. Anything you want to add to before we go?
No, I'm just trying to keep next to you. I'm conscious of the fact that it's really busy.
Yeah, it's we're probably about 11:30 now on a Sunday morning. York
10 to 12.
Is it 10 to 12? Right.
Blimey.
And York is absolutely rammed with people. This is the quietest. We wanted to go over the bridge doing the video, but there's too many people.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have a nice leisurely day walking around. Guys, thank you so much for everybody that has subscribed to the channel, everybody that gives a thumbs up, comments, shares, and likes all these videos. And thank you so much for those that have contributed and supported me on Buy Me a Coffee. That helps me get to different places all up and down the country and around the world. Okay, see you in the next video. Thank you.